So in this video, I'll go over 10 explanations of the most common reasons your ex is checking up on you, listed in no particular order, as well as how to respond to the whole thing. So, without any further ado, let's get onwards with the reasons. Starting with number 1, your ex is simply nostalgic, and that's why they check up on you. Maybe they checked up on you because they started to reminisce about the highlights of your relationship, right? The fun dates, the amazing sex, the feeling of having someone who cares for them in their life, stuff like that. And after one thought led to the other, perhaps their mind got cluttered with them, each thought fighting to get out and reminding them of what they lost. You. And eventually, the pressure got so intense that they could not help but check up on you. Another explanation for the checkup could be simple curiosity. So whether or not your ex accepted your breakup and moved on, and whether or not you've ended things on bad terms, there is a possibility that they are still curious about you. They may wonder how you're handling the breakup, if you have your life in order, and perhaps most commonly, if you're available. Now, if your ex is interested in getting back together, they will likely use this information to gauge your level of attraction and decide on their next move with more certainty. Now, as for the third explanation, your ex is simply lonely and that's why they checked up on you. Because look, loneliness, it's probably one of the most challenging parts of a breakup's aftermath. And while some people aren't as affected by it as some other people, most of us still suffer from it to some extent. So there's a good chance that your ex, whether they're the dumpy or the dumper, whatever, there is a chance that they're dealing with their own fair share of loneliness. And that may also be why they got this sudden urge to check up on you. As for the fourth explanation, your ex is jealous. Now, I talked a lot about jealousy throughout my career, so in my articles, in my videos, even in my online courses and books, and it's a nasty, useless emotion that kind of plagues literally everyone that is pursuing reconciliation, everyone that wants to get back with an ex, and even, sometimes, people who simply want to move on. And it's this pesky emotion that can just be the catalyst for your ex's checkup. It really can be that simple. And if you're playing the field, let's say you are fucking around, you're having a blast, then of course there's an even greater chance that jealousy is the main reason your ex is checking up on you. As for the fifth explanation, your ex simply wants an ego boost. Now, sometimes they check up on you only because they want to get some of that, sweet, succulent validation, usually in the form of getting some sort of a confirmation that they're still cared for. They essentially want you to make them feel better about themselves, about the breakup, to make them feel more worthy, lovable, and like they still matter. Or they want to vindicate their own self-image if they know they've been somewhat of a shitty person, a shitty partner. Now, talking of shitty partners, this kind of brings us to the sixth explanation for your ex's checkup, simply guilt. So, was your ex maybe a cheater? Were they a liar, an abuser, all three? Maybe they're so ashamed of how they acted that instead of addressing their fuck-ups, taking accountability and apologizing, at least they check up on you, partly to show interest, partly to be forgiven, at least a little bit. Now, under this context, a checkup is a pretty immature reaction or a response. It's a red flag. So, even if it does mean your ex wants you back, I would encourage you to reconsider reconciliation. That said, if you're someone who just wants to move on, of course, this can be a really fun thing to notice because it's a clear indication if your ex is checking up on you due to guilt that, well, that they're hurting a little bit, which is a little bit of an immature reaction from you if this is what you feel, but it is what it is nonetheless. Anyhow, to not get too sidetracked, as for the seventh explanation for your ex's checkup, it's when they are angry. Now this goes especially for intense, bitter, or feisty checkups. If that's the case, it's likely because your ex is mad at you, or they maybe just lack attention and they're mad about that. Now, as painful as it is to hear this, your ex being angry is actually a good thing if you're someone who wants to get them back. It means they're not over you yet. Just putting it out there. Although if your ex does start to insult you, blame you, condemn you, they're passive aggressive, they try to guilt trip you, for example, by all means, whether you want them back or not, ignore or block them altogether. You want to communicate only with people who can actually show you some respect. Now, as for explanation number 8, your ex just wants to have sex with you. Now, this is usually why a guy checks up on his ex. Sometimes people are just really horny, and there's nothing wrong with that. Just remember, context is king when it comes to deciding how you will respond to an ex's checkup when they really are just horny. Now, whether you want them back or not, I would recommend the following. If they just want a simple hookup, don't hook up with them. Because you don't want to treat yourself as just, piece of meat. You gotta have enough self-respect to not do that. That said, if you're only seeing your ex as a piece of meat as well, then by all means go have sex. Now, specifically for people who want to get back with their ex, if you do want to get them back, again, you should not just accept a booty call. You should meet up and have the sex happen organically. That way it's gonna be way more emotionally impactful for the both of you, and it's also gonna be a lot more fun. Now, as for the 9th explanation, your ex just wants to remain friends. Now, I'll be honest, this rarely happens, especially if your breakup happened recently. It's much more likely that your ex will check up on you for every other reason that I went over. Yet, checkups for a simple friendship, while they do happen rarely, they still do happen at times. Now, whenever this happens, what you want to do is very simple. You want to decline friendship and you don't want to ever accept it. Because let's be honest, if you want to move on, you want to move on. You don't want to hear from them. Whereas if you want your ex back, you probably want them back in a romantic sense. You want to make love to them. You want to go on dates with them. You don't want to be just friends. So you want to be congruent with what you want, with your values, and really avoid accepting friendship for that reason. Now, as for the last explanation for why your ex wants to check up on you is, well, they simply miss you. Now, this is probably the most obvious reason, but it still is worth mentioning in my opinion. If your ex is simply checking up on you, it's likely because they miss you and they want to reconnect. Now, this does not mean they might suddenly just, give you another chance. This might also mean that your ex, if they have a history of very toxic behavior, it could also mean that they are manipulating you and just want to make it as if you have a chance, so you develop more feelings for them and then they can reject you or break up with you again so they can hurt you more. Yes, crazy idea, but it does happen sometimes with some exes from what I've seen. Anyhow, with the reasons an ex checks up on you covered, how do you respond? Well, although emotionally difficult, thankfully this is rather simple. Now let me explain. If you just want to move on and you have no shared responsibilities with your ex that make communication necessary, either tell them to stop reaching out, don't respond, and hope that they get the message, or block them altogether. You can also, of course, do a mixture of these approaches or solutions, whatever you think is right. Unfortunately, it's just really hard to give a blanket answer here on like a video, since every breakup is different. I need to know your situation, your story, to be able to provide like a very tailored solution. But anyhow, On the other hand, if what you want is your ex back and they check up on you and it's not about logistics, so like kids and pets or living and work arrangements, all you want to do is invite them on a date as soon as possible in the conversation without being pushy, and if they give a wishy-washy answer or they reject you, simply take back the invite and move on. But if they agree on a date, set a specific time and place and go from there. If that happens, you have a bunch of other ex back videos on my channel that you can watch to really nail down how to handle these sorts of situations and how to execute really memorable, in a good way, dates, and how to go from there into commitment, how to basically have the talk with your ex, how to recommit with them, and all the 9 yards. That being said, that's all from my side. If you want more tips and ideas and advice on breakups in general, you should sign up for my weekly newsletter, The Breakthrough Letter, where each week you'll get a short email with one idea, one suggestion, and one resource to help you break through your breakup and create a new possibility for love, be that with your ex or without them.